Welcome to the Therapy Show podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard. In each episode, I interview a seasoned and knowledgeable talk therapist from the counseling world to glean valuable insights, techniques, and tools that you can apply to your practice and your life. And if you're considering a career in the counseling field or just want to hear about what it's like to be a talk therapist, then this is the podcast for you. Whitney Owens is a licensed professional counselor and private practice consultant. She lives in Savannah, Georgia, where she owns a group private practice, Water's Edge Counseling. In addition to running her practice, she offers individual and group consulting through Practice of the Practice. Whitney places a special emphasis on helping clinicians start and grow faith-based practices. She is also a wife and mother to two beautiful girls. And on today's episode, we discuss ideas for marketing yourself as a faith-based counselor and attracting your ideal clients. Whitney shares practical tips and advice you can start implementing right away. But before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to let you know that you can grab one free continuing education contact hour on my homepage, lisamustard.com. Just head to my site and sign up, and you'll receive a code that you can use for one of the pod courses. Currently, I have 4 pod courses to choose from, and more are on their way. All right, now let's get to the show. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Therapy Show. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard, and today on the show, I have a really interesting guest. Once again, somebody I connected with in a Facebook group, and if you guys aren't connecting in Facebook groups, you are missing out on wonderful, insightful, amazing clinicians. I highly recommend that you get yourself into some of those groups on Facebook. And her name is Whitney Owens. So welcome to the show, Whitney.
Thanks, Lisa. Glad to be here.
I am so excited to have you here. So I came across you in Next Level Practice that is run by our buddy, Joe Sanek. He was on the podcast many episodes ago, and I was so intrigued by what it is that you do and who you help. Before you jump into that, though, I love to ask the question, how did you decide to become a talk therapist?
Yes, I was ready for that question. Yeah, it's a little bit twofold. I went to college, actually went to the University of Georgia. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Yeah. And then after that, I did campus ministry at the UGA Wesley Foundation. That's like a Methodist-oriented campus ministry. It's actually one of the largest in the nation. And so a big part of that was discipleship. So we'd meet one-on-one with student leaders. And I probably had 7 or 8 students that I would meet one-on-one with. And I just kept getting this positive feedback from them. Whitney, now I'm going to sound so arrogant, but they were like, Whitney, you're so wise. You're really helping me put the pieces together. And I was like, oh man, do I have something here? Like, is there something to this? So I think that was a big part of it. I also had a mentor myself during that season, and she had started grad school as a counselor, MFT, I think, at Georgia. Mm-hmm. And so it was kind of those two things together that I was like, okay, maybe there's something here and I should pursue this. And things kind of grew from there.
Very cool. Did you go to Georgia for grad school too?
No, I actually went to a school called Richmond Graduate University. Oh. So when I was in school and when I applied, it was called PSI, the Psychological Studies Institute. But then with psychology and counseling and yada, yada, they changed their name while I was there. So now it's called Richmond, and it has to do with going high on a mountain where it's rich. So get really Christian there, right?
Yeah, I like the visual. I'm like, I can see that. I can see that in my head. So you are a big Bulldog fan, and I gotta give a shout out. Have you been to Jittery Joe's coffee?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't have that here. I'm in Savannah, but yeah, It's only, I think it might only be. Do you have it there too?
Well, the reason I ask is that is my brother-in-law. He's the coffee roaster for Jittery Joe's. I know, small world, right? So we go to Athens all the time and hang out. We love Athens. I love Athens. Yeah.
Well, for those that have not had Jittery Joe's, it is good coffee. And I'm really sad that we don't have that here in Savannah. So yeah, I always go there when I'm in town.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, maybe I'll send you some and I'll get you an in. That'd be great. That'd be so fun. Okay. So you definitely have that background of faith-based. Is that primarily your practice?
Yeah, that's a good question. It sort of is my practice. So as a believer, it's like everything that I do has some kind of faith component within me internally, personally, but that's not necessarily something that everybody sees, right?
Right.
But when clients come into my office and we do a first appointment, we always ask, just like we ask on what's your family, what's your medical history, all that, what's your spiritual history? Do you have a church? Is that a big deal to you? Do you consider yourself religious, spiritual? We ask those questions. And if they seem open to it, we'll say, okay, well, is that something you want to be a part of your therapy? Some people say yes, some say no. We're totally in the Bible Belt. So a lot of people do talk about that kind of stuff. But as far as our practice, we don't advertise as a Christian agency in any kind of way. We just don't want to like throw that out there and miss other clients that we want to see. So I would say it's probably 50-60% of clients that come in have some kind of faith background. Maybe only 15-20% are like, I really want religion to be a part of this, of what I'm doing. So it's a little bit of everything.
Okay, very cool. So tell us a little bit about your practice.
Yeah. So I am located in Savannah, Georgia, which is right on the water and on the coast of Georgia. And I started this practice 5 years ago, actually, next month. So January 2015. And it was just me solo, had to move here for my husband's job. Was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Like, I got to find a counseling agency to work at. Of course, that didn't work out. Yeah. So then I started my own practice and have kind of gone from there. It was me alone for a while, had my second child while I was doing that practice. And then in 2018, hired my first contractor, hired my second a few months after that. And then at the end of 2018, hired my third clinician. Of course, all at the same time, the two contractors left. I changed my whole model to a W-2 model. And ever since I did that, it's really skyrocketed from there. So there are 5 of us now, clinicians at the practice, and I have an assistant as well. It's called Water's Edge Counseling. So, I like the idea of not pushing faith in people's faces, but offering something that is faith-based to an extent. So it's like I've got the imagery of water. Actually, our logo is the scallop shell, which has to do with the Camino de Santiago, if you're familiar with that. So it's got some religious undertones, but for people who are not looking for a faith-based perspective, it still draws them in. But people who are looking for a faith-based perspective see all that and they get it and they come.
Very interesting. I find that fascinating. And I talk to a lot of folks in my neck of the woods here in Columbia, South Carolina, that are faith-based practitioners. And I think they find themselves a little bit unsure how to market themselves because they love to use faith in their counseling, but they also don't want to miss out on clients that, that might not be part of what they're looking for. So, they decide to go to counseling. But I do definitely have people asking me all the time, Lisa, who do you know that is a Christian counselor? Who do you recommend? Who do you recommend? And part of that, here in Columbia, I think some of that has to do, we have a lot of master's programs around here. We have Columbia International University, which is definitely a Christian-based school. So we have a lot of folks in Columbia that are using, their faith-based, or they call themselves Christian counselors. So I know that you've kind of, what am I trying to say? You've definitely carved out this space for yourself to be a go-to kind of expert as how to help build a faith-based practice. And I wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit for our talk therapist friends that are listening that are wanting to really get out there and advertise themselves a little bit more in that space. What would you say to them as they're just kind of first starting to think this through?
Yeah, like when they're first starting to think about their practice and how they want to market. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think the first part is figuring out where you land on your own faith, your own values. So considering, hey, can I do counseling without making faith a part of it? Because I think some people would say, there's no way I can help somebody without bringing prayer, bringing the Bible into it. Okay. And that is great. If that's where you land, perfect. Those are not typically the kinds of clients that are, as a consultant, those aren't the people that I'm typically working with. So most of the time I'm working with people who are in that middle ground. So they're thinking, okay, well, I want faith to be a part of it, but I don't want it to be all of it. So how do you find something that you can share with people that has maybe a religious part to it, but not everything? I think is really important. And also thinking just about good clinical work. Like I think we put a lot of stock into, I'm a Christian counselor, so I have to be Christian. Well, you can be a Christian counselor. You don't have to label yourself that, but still just do good clinical work. And when we do good work, we are doing something good for God, and I think we put just too much stock in it has to have this title on it, when you can just do good work and you don't have to talk about faith at all if you don't want to, or if you're not comfortable with it and you're still doing good stuff.
Right. Okay. That's very cool. I like how you think that through and how the first question being, define where you fall, where you land on that spectrum. So if somebody were to come to you and say, tell me a little bit about how to market myself, what would be some tips that you would want to share with them about how they should market themselves?
Number one is a good website, and making sure that you're communicating to your clients really well what it is that you do, hitting their pain thinking about what's the pain, what's the transformation, and what's the outcome that I want this person to experience. And so when you're writing your service pages, when you're doing bios, like thinking through that type of client when they're coming to your website. And then once you've got that website done, getting good SEO indexing done on your website, blogging regularly, I think all that's just where we're at. People are going on Google and that's how they're finding it. And even in my practice, once I did some of that stuff, I would say my call volume tripled easily and got a lot more going. And honestly, probably 60-70% of the referrals I get are through Google.
Wow.
Yeah. It's really amazing. Like I was talking about the faith-based part, and this is what I help people with, getting that copywriting lingo to their website to be faith-based, but not overtly, because I have so many people who come in who have no idea that I have a faith background at all. And they're jaded by the church, and they probably would have never come if it had said, oh, God, God, God on the website. But then I also have people that come in that are very faith-based, and they're like, yeah, I came because your practice is Christian. And I'm like, no, we're not. And nothing on the website says that, but I can give you that perspective. So it's really cool the way the website has met that need for both people. So that's the first tip that I would say. And then so much of it is just personal relationship, right? And especially when you're faith-based, you're probably involved in a church and in a lot of community settings. So encouraging you to always be talking about your work with people. Don't feel like you're selling it. Just that counseling is good. Like you're going to get better. Therapy's awesome. And so just talking to people about that, setting up coffee dates with people to say, hey, what are the struggles that you're having at your business or with your students or with your patients, and how can we help you in that? And then keeping up with those relationships. We get a lot of referrals from schools, pediatric offices, and then pastors. I meet individually with pastors, try to take them to lunch and let them know about the practice.
That's really cool. And how do you reach out to them? Is that just a phone call? Is it an email? What works best for you?
Well, best would be that you actually know the person, right?
Right.
So maybe your kids play soccer together and this guy is an associate at some church in town. Well, walk over and say, hey, I'm a therapist. Let's chat. I started out with my own church and then asked my pastor for connections at other churches, connect with the churches of my staff, or like if our kids attend a preschool, then connecting with the pastor of that church's preschool. So it is kind of like name dropping. Occasionally we will reach out, cold call. It usually doesn't go well. Right. In fact, the most recent time we did that, they were like, no, we refer somewhere else in town. And we were like, all right then.
Right. Yeah. It sounds like you definitely have a warm market referral network that you prefer to go to. And I think that just makes the most sense because those are the people that already know, like, and trust you. And they're going to say, oh yeah, Whitney, come meet so-and-so. We adore you and think you're wonderful and you do such good work. So yeah, why wouldn't they introduce you, to their network? I think that's really wise. I think a lot of the times we try to overcomplicate it with getting referrals, but start with who you know and think about, kind of map it out. Like, I love how you said pediatricians, like that's where I would go first if I wanted to work with kids is my pediatrician. I would go to, my other counseling friends and who I know are just book solid and say, hey, if you want to, hand over some referrals, I'm here for you. I'm definitely taking on new clients. I think that's really, really wise. And I think that a lot of times we do tend to overcomplicate it and we try to make it more than it needs to be. Hey friend, want to be more comfortable while sitting on the therapy couch? I sure did and went looking for pants and tops that were soft, wrinkle resistant, and would match just about anything I already had in my closet. And now ZYIA Active makes up about 80% of my wardrobe. Would you like to learn more? Head over to my site, lisamustard.com, and click on the activewear tab. And don't think this is just for women. They have men's and kids' clothes too. And our family is loving the quality, and I am loving the price tag. So head over to my site to check it all out. Now, you said 60% of your clients find you or come to you through like a Google search, you think?
Definitely. At least 60. I'd have to go back and look at numbers. It could be a little higher than that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I also was curious when you said that it's the copywriting of finding that sweet spot of talking the lingo that would have someone, maybe, oh, well, she might be a believer. So I guess I'm kind of confused about that. Like, do you mean your SEO keywords are Christian counseling, faith-based practice kind of thing?
They're not.
Okay.
They're not, but I actually am going to add a page on Christian counseling, I think, because people sometimes do Google that, and so that might help. And I'll kind of see how that traction goes because I want to make sure it doesn't push people away. So I'll have to, so much of it, right, is testing out different
Oh,
words and
yeah.
different things, seeing what works. It's more about imagery and considering Christian symbols. So like the fact that we're called Water's Edge Counseling, water already has that idea of baptism, renewal. It's all over the Bible, right? And so I think people kind of think through that, or you might call yourself, renew, like just this idea of renew counseling or something like that. People associate renewal with a spiritual basis a lot of times. Like I was talking to somebody the other day, his practice is called Life Encounter. So a lot of times that's kind of a Christian lingo, making encounters with God, right? But he doesn't say that on his website, but it kind of gives that idea.
Aha, I like it. That's so cool. Gets me thinking so many new things. I love how you explain that. I wasn't quite sure what you meant, so thank you for kind of giving some insight. So, folks that are listening, that's a really great tip right there. I love that. That's great. I know that you have sent over a PDF that I can link to the show. Can you talk a little bit about what's in that PDF so people will want to go and check it out?
Yeah, sure. So the PDF is about common pitfalls between churches and pastors. So I think a lot of times we kind of miss the mark in talking to pastors, or how do we do that? How do we connect with them? So I put 5 different ways, and I'll just touch on those real quick.
Okay.
One of them is just not knowing one another, not meeting each other. And you'd be surprised how many pastors don't have therapists to refer to. The second one's not trusting one another. So you got to build that trusting relationship, because they're not going to refer to someone they don't think can do good work or that they can't trust with their parishioners. The third is not knowing the difference between pastoral and clinical counseling, because a lot of pastors think that they can do counseling in their office when really they should only see them once or twice and then move on and be referring to us. The fourth one here is not believing in counseling outside of a church setting. So there's some very conservative churches who don't want to refer out at all to anybody. They want everything in-house. And I say to if you're dealing with a church like that, just let them go, because you're going to be fighting a battle you're not going to win. And then the last one here is we don't continue to maintain relationships. So it's like you get that, and this is with all marketing, right? We get that referral and we don't follow up with people after we get the referral, or like every few months we don't check in with the people that refer to us. So I actually have like a whole document where we track how many referrals we're getting from people, when's the last time we talked to that person, what did we do for that person, and making sure that we're touching base several times a year.
Wow. Great. I love that. So we'll definitely hook that PDF up to the show notes so you guys can go and have that. If people want more Whitney in their lives, how do they find you? How would they connect with you?
Yeah, that's funny. So I am a consultant with Practice of the Practice. We were talking about Joe Stanok earlier. So it's a network with him. I'm kind of naming my part of it Faith in Practice.
Okay.
And so you can go to thepracticeofthepractice.com and get information about that. If you want to work with me, like individual consulting, or I do run 2 masterminds a year, you can do the practiceofthepractice.com/apply, and then you put your information in, and then you'll get a short consultation with me to kind of figure out if we would be a good fit or not, because we're not wanting to work with people that it's not going to help their practice.
Sure.
So it kind of gets us connected. And then, we were talking about Facebook earlier. I do have a Facebook group that's called Faith in Practice, and it's for private practice owners that are wanting to grow their practices and have some kind of faith background. It doesn't mean they have to incorporate faith in everything they do. Maybe they don't incorporate it all into their practice, but it's just something that they're thinking about. And so we're having conversations about that. I'm doing Facebook Lives with tips on building their practice. So it's a great group to join.
Very cool. Okay, well, we will link to as many of those as we possibly can in the show notes. I'm really curious, what does your personal caseload look like these days? How many clients do you see a week versus how much consulting, mastermind, coaching are you doing these days?
That's such a good question. I feel like it changes all the time, and I'm still kind of trying to figure out what that sweet spot is. Honestly, I see too many clients. I think I usually average about 12 a week, and I would like to get down to 8. I think that would be really great. I probably devote 3 to 5 hours a week to the consulting, either doing the individual, running a mastermind, or just prepping for things. I like to travel and give talks as well. So if people have places where they would prefer to have someone come and talk from a faith-based perspective on private practice, would love to also do that. So that's probably about what the time frame is. I work 3 to 4 days a week.
Gotcha. Oh, that sounds really nice. Is that something that you have set yourself up for over the years? Like when you got into private practice, I'm really curious about that journey. What was that like for you? You started because you, like you said, you came to Savannah thinking you would get a job at an agency, and that didn't pan out. So you created your own position, your own, business. So what was that journey like as you kind of got started? And I know you've added clinicians, but for you personally, like what was that like?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when I first got here, I tried to work other places, didn't work. And then someone from my graduate program saw on Facebook that I had moved to Savannah, and he had a friend here who also has a faith background and is counseling master. He actually has a master's of divinity and a master's in counseling.
Mm.
And so he said, "You two got to connect." So we got coffee, and he was like, "Let's just do a practice. Like, let's just jump into this." He's a risk taker, which is what I need in my life more often. And I was like, "Okay." And so we rented actually the space we're still in right now. It's 3 offices, but I have one, he has one, and then now I have the other one. But at the time we rented out the third one. And so we just started seeing clients. And he actually gave me my first few referrals because he's a local. And when you're in Savannah, name is everything. And so he gave me my first few clients, and it kind of went from there. So I was solo for 3 years that way.
Mhm. Very cool.
So you had asked me about the schedule.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
you asked
yeah,
me about before.
yeah.
Yeah. And so when I first started, it was like my own office. So I saw clients whenever they could come in. Like, I'm going to make myself available because I need clients.
Mm.
And then as I started growing the caseload, I tried to only work Tuesdays and Thursdays. At the time, I had one daughter. She was about 2.5, 3 years old. So I was with her the other 3 days of the week. And then as that grew, I added a third day. And I was only 3 days until recently. But now I have 2 daughters. My oldest is in full-time school, but the youngest is at a preschool. So I started working more mornings
Mhm.
because now I can kind of tailor the caseload for people that can come in the morning. And then I only work 2 afternoons a week. That way I'm with her after preschool 3 afternoons a week. So it's giving me more time to be with her by actually increasing my morning time at work.
Oh, I love it. That's really cool how you've designed your practice to fit your life. And I think that's really cool. I know a lot of therapist friends really, really want that flexibility and that freedom, to design that practice how they want to live their life. So I think that's really inspiring to know that you did it. You're doing it. You've definitely done that. So I know we're in a brand new year, 2020, a brand new decade. Somebody asked me the other day, like, what are my goals for 2020? And it just like paralyzed me. I was like, I take it year by year. I'm not sure, I could do like maybe 2 to 3 years, but what are you most excited about within this new decade? Like what do you think is going to happen for you? What would you like to happen for you?
Yes, I love that you said this. I actually just did this with my staff on Monday. We did a whole goals thing on thinking about your personal, family, and work goals and breaking those up into quarters for 2020. So I have been thinking about this, but I think what I'm the most excited about is the consulting because I'm kind of new and getting going with the consulting. I've been doing this for 3 to 6 months, I guess.
Mhm.
So I just love this idea of helping people find good therapists,
Yeah.
and so I'm going to help therapists get their name out better so that we're changing more lives in the world. Like that is really thrilling to me and providing a community of like-minded people to be able to talk about this stuff. So like when I was in a mastermind over the past few years, which I loved, but I didn't necessarily have that community where I could ask some questions about rates within a Christian field or how do I hire from a faith-based perspective. And now I've created this community where we can do that. So that's really exciting to me.
Mhm.
So I think that's what I'm the most excited about.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for you, and I think that's just wonderful. I'm super excited for you, and I can't wait to see where you are in a year or two. So, I have one more question for you. So, what do you do for self care?
Oh, I love to run.
Oh, cool.
It's like yeah, I know it immediately. Like that's how I release stuff that's going
Yeah,
on. That's when I start to think clearly. If I'm feeling anxious or overwhelmed and I run, I'm like, what was I so worried about? It's like totally gone. But
yeah.
that's what I really love to do.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And you said you have 2 girls, so they're young. That's really nice. Oh, I'm just like, I wish I could just hug you through. I could hug you through the Zoom. I tell everybody, like, we record this where we can see each other, and I somehow want to get this video up on YouTube or something at some point down the road. But this has been a really, really. You're just so warm and friendly and approachable and kind and genuine and authentic as the day is long. So thanks, Whitney, for being here and for sharing your good stuff. And your goal is to help your clients get the get themselves out there so we can help more people. And I really believe that, that's one of my goals with this podcast is to help other therapists shine their goodness and, let the world know what amazing work they're doing. So eventually, they'll do the same thing. They'll find more people to help, or they'll be found by people who need help. So I'm really, really grateful you came on the show today. Thank you. Is there anything else you want to share before we say goodbye?
No, that's great. I've really enjoyed meeting with you, and you make it easy to be interviewed. So it's really great. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay. Well, we will definitely, I'd love to have you back down the road. So maybe we'll plan that later in 2020.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, that wraps up another episode of The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine. Be sure to visit lisamustard.com to access the show notes and discover more fantastic content. And I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the show. Thank you.